All right, friends, we've got this little trio of projects for your March Crafters Crate, and I'm going to show you how to put it all together. So inside your kit, you're going to find these easel pieces, this little hop sign, a container of Mod Podge, our pink and green paints that we're going to use for accent colors, our bunny and base, these little triangles, a sanding sponge, a pair of Easter eggs, a tissue that we are going to decoupage with, some embellishment pieces, and of course our note every month that has our subscription club discount code on there, as well as the information on where you found this video. All right, before we get started, go ahead and grab your Crafters Crate tool bag with your brushes and extra paints in it. I recommend grabbing a pair of scissors, and if you have a hot glue gun handy, this is going to help make some of the part really, really simple. All right, so for this month's project, we're going to be learning a little bit about decoupaging. We've done some before with scrapbook paper, but this month we're actually going to be using a seasonal napkin. I love picking stuff up like this. You can find them at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Walmart, Home Goods, all kinds of places, and there's always cute patterns that go with every holiday. There's a couple little tricks that make using these really, really simple for different kinds of projects. So the biggest tip I want to tell you is when you first open up your napkin, just like with toilet paper and napkins, they have multiple plies to them. So when you're going to decoupage with a napkin, the trick is you want to make sure you're only using the very top ply of your napkin. So what you do is you kind of open it up and then sort of play around with the edges until they start to fray. And I know it's tricky to see on the camera, but we're going to play around with that until we get those edges to fray apart so that we can get just the very, very top layer. For instance, these ones are 3-ply napkins, so there's going to be 3 layers of material here. Again, separate. So you're going to have 1 white backing, 2 white backings, and then the very, very front is just our print design on it. So we want to separate to get just that very, very front piece. The problem is if we were to leave all those other plies on there and apply it all together, a lot of times it'll bubble underneath and then you'll end up with an uneven project, and that's not what we're going for. The one thing though I will say is when you have one, especially like this with a white background, it's going to be pretty thin. So if I were to decoupage this directly onto my base, I'm probably going to see some of that brown and wood grain come through. It's probably not really easy to see on the camera, but it's going to be hard to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to base coat the areas that we are going to apply the decoupage to with some of our white paint from our canvas bag of goodies in here. So let me sneak mine out of here real quick. Like this. So I'm going to use our flat blue brush and some white paint, and I'm just going to base coat any of the parts that I want to apply the decoupage to. In the first set I did the background of the hop sign and the background of my bunny. We're going to try something today, and I'm going to try to decoupage actually on the letter pieces of our hop and see how that turns out. So wish me luck. I'm going to go ahead and base coat those real quick, and then I will get to the decoupaging part. All right, so I have base coated my bunny and my HOP letters. I will tell you it does not have to be a perfect coat. If you notice, my lines are not perfect by any means. It's not super, super smooth. We're just trying to give ourselves a lighter background to work on when we go to put our napkin on. You will want to make sure that your paint is nice and dry before you put the decoupage stuff on there. We're using Mod Podge for ours. There are other mediums you can use as well, but we do have Mod Podge in the container. But what we'll end up doing is we're going to coat this in Mod Podge. We're going to put the napkin on top of it. Now, something to keep in mind when you're using napkins for this is that often the pattern is going to split in the middle. So if you're using scrapbook paper, usually you've got your, I can pick this up, your whole sheet is going to have your pattern going the correct direction. With a napkin, usually about halfway through it's going to flip. So this, if I don't throw it around anymore, this is side up and this is also side up. But if I were to lay it completely out, there's going to be a part where the pattern's going to be upside down from each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my napkin down with my shape, and I'm going to kind of just trim out the amount of space that I need, making sure that my pattern is all going the correct direction. So I've got my napkin here, my bunny, and I'm going to put it to where he's just kind of sort of over here in the corner. I don't have to be real careful on my edges. I'm just making sure I lay it out to where I can see roughly where he needs to go. So if I go about halfway through the middle of this section and about to the line, I'll be good to go with plenty of room for him. There we go. So I'm going to set that piece aside. I do want to mention too, if you decide you want to do the background of your hop sign like I did, you're still going to have plenty of room to put that. So don't stress over that. And then for my HOP, I only need small sections for this as well. And honestly, this little piece right here is going to be more than enough. So I'm just going to trim this section of my napkin out too. Trim this and across. All right, so that's gonna be enough for my lettering too. I'm gonna set those aside for right now, and we're gonna work on our big piece first. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some of my Mod Podge, and I'm gonna use the foam brush for this one, and I'm gonna coat an even, not real heavy coat all the way across my bunny shape, and then lay my napkin on top. Put that there, so I'm just gonna spread some of this on here. And the only kind of tricky part is that you do want to work a little bit quickly with this so that the Mod Podge is still wet when we lay our napkin down. And I might need a little bit more than what I put on there. And so the easiest way to tell if it's still wet is just to kind of look and see if you've still got a shiny gloss, because this is a flat Mod Podge, or matte rather. If you've still got shiny glossiness to it, you should be good to go. But we're going to make sure we spread it all the way across our whole little bunny shape. That looks good. And now I'm going to take my napkin and I'm going to lay it down flat on there. Making sure that I get my pattern going in the right direction. And once I kind of have it in place, I'm going to slowly press it down without really spreading hard. If you spread hard, you have the possibility of tearing your napkin. And of course, we're going to try not to do that. Now, if you look close, I have some wrinkles and kind of bubbles in there. All I'm going to do is just very gently work them kind of outward towards an outside edge. If they have a couple wrinkles, it's not going to be the end of the world. I promise you that. But if you just kind of lightly press and push the wrinkles to the outside edge of your project, it's going to help smooth it out a lot. I've got that pretty well pressed down on there. I want to make sure I'm on my edges. I'm pressing down there too, because I want to make sure that it goes all the way to the edge of my project and sticks down really well. And then I'm going to let that Mod Podge dry for just a few minutes, and we're going to leave them just like that for a second. I'm going to sneak over and do my HOP letters and kind of do it the exact same way. I'll probably just do one letter at a time so that it has enough time to stay wet. Let's kind of trim my little pieces out here. My H. I was going to try to stick them all together on one piece, but that sounds messy. My P. My O. Perfect. So I'm going to lay these pieces out, and one by one I'm going to squirt a little bit of, whoops, I'm going to throw them apparently. Put a little squirt of Mod Podge on there. I'm going to spread it out over my letter. And then stick my tissue on top. Now, I will say it is a lot easier to do the rectangle back of this sign with the pattern on it, but I wanted to try something different on this one. Because these letters are more of like a block style, they're not as hard to get the design onto, but I have Mod Podge tissue paper onto a script font too, where there's all kinds of little edges to get into, so it's not impossible, but this one's a lot easier than some of them I've done. I will say the lettering is a lot easier to do with something like this, the tissue paper, than it is to do with scrapbook paper, because scrapbook paper is not quite as forgiving as the tissue is when it comes to getting around tight curves and edges. So I'm going to go ahead and coat my O. Lay this piece down. Now I will say, if for some reason you end up not working fast enough and your Mod Podge dries before you can get your piece down, it's okay. Just let it dry completely and add another coat right on top. It's not going to hurt anything. Mod Podge can also be used as a sealer, so it's pretty easy to work with. All right, so I got that one stuck down, and now I'm just going to do my letter P. You are also more than welcome, I will always mention this, that if you have other craft supplies you want to work with, because these colors are not your jam, you can always switch things up too. Napkins, like I said, are fortunately fairly inexpensive, and if you're getting napkins for an Easter get-together anyway, you might have some extras in maybe a pattern or a setup that you like, and you can always switch our pieces out and try your own options as well. All right, smooth my pea out. Now I have seen they make little scrapers and stuff you can use to do this as well. I just caution using those if you are doing the tissue like this, because it will tear your tissue if you're too rough with it. All right, so we'll set that guy aside, and this should be plenty dry enough. Now I will say I used the foam brush to spread my Mod Podge. I'm gonna make sure I put that in water quickly so that it doesn't stay stuck to my foam brush forever, because that's not fun. But it is water-based, so it does wash out really well. So I've got my bunny, he's pretty dry on there, and I'm gonna trim a little bit around the edges just to make it a little tighter. Go this way. But then I'm gonna go back in with my sanding sponge, or you can also use like an X-Acto blade to get the edges really, really tight on there. Come around this side though. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my sanding sponge, and right at the edge, I'm gonna apply just a little bit of pressure, and it's gonna help me get the excess of that paper off. You saw I literally scraped it twice, and it's already shredding right away from my project. But I'm gonna do that going all the way around, all the way around my little bunny shape and get all of this excess off. You can tear it as well and get pretty close, but I do like to sand it. It just kind of gives it a really, really clean edge. The only parts that'll be a little bit trickier are gonna be these tighter corner pieces, and that's where you can do a couple of different things. You could break out, like I said, an X-Acto knife would help. You could use just the edge of a pair of scissors, just kind of anything to get into that little tiny spot. All right, so I'm gonna cheat and get in there tight with my little, not so little scissors, with my scissors, just to get those edges that are a little tricky with the sanding block. Smooth those pieces out. Do I have like 10 box cutters and X-Acto blades around me? Yes. Am I going to grab one? No, because this is gonna do the same thing. Especially with the tissue paper, this stuff tears away really, really easy. Scrapbook paper would not be quite as easy to do this with just a pair of scissors. Those are the ones where we definitely bring out the better blade for it. One more little spot. Now there is a whole trick where you can light this on fire and it's supposed to burn right to the edge, but it makes me nervous, so we're not going to be testing that theory today. There are lots of videos on it, but I am just not that brave. Come off of there. Of course, I've got one piece that's gonna fight me. Or I can just get the box cutter and be done. All right, so there is my little bunny shape. Now I'm gonna go back in and do kind of the same thing with my letters, because they should be plenty dry by now. I'm just gonna have a few more spots to kind of get down into. The H, of course, is gonna be the easiest of them, because he's all straight lines. The P and the O will have a couple little curves. But again, I'm just hitting my outside edges, just enough to tear the paper away from it. And then kind of the insides will shred away from it too. And again, I could go back in and cut them real nice and tight with my blade. But there's my little H. For the insides of your O and your P, you're just gonna kind of poke a hole. I'll use my scissors to do it. Poke a little hole and kind of tear into them to get the insides of it out. Come off of there. And along the inside, use my scissors just a little bit more to clean up those edges. There's my little letter O. And then finally, I will do the same with my letter P and have all my letters ready to roll. I'm going to poke that little hole in the middle there, clean up my edge just a little, and then do the outside of it. All right, so I got my decoupaging done. I'm going to break into painting my background pieces for the hop sign as well as the stand for my bunny. I think behind my lettering, I'm going to do pink and then do green on this outside edge piece for my hop sign. And I think for the base, I'm going to do green as well since he's going to have a pink bow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my paints and paint as I would normally. Now, one thing I will mention is on the background of this, the only part they're going to see is going to be this outside edge piece, so that's really all I need to paint. But let me go ahead and get these painted up. My background pieces are all painted. Now, there's tons of extra things you could do to these if you wanted to distress them, dry brush them, all kinds of cute stuff that you could do. I would use my chip brush probably on a painted background, dip it in either an alternative color or even use some stain and just brush against this. It could look really, really cute. I'm going to keep these ones fairly simple and keep it with the bright colors, so I'm not going to do that. But if distressed is more your style, you definitely could play with some of that. But all I'm going to do now is kind of start assembling my pieces, and then we will finish our embellishments in just a moment. So I'm going to take my glue. I'm going to start with my hop sign. I'm just going to put some dots of glue on the back side of this and stick it down. And all I'm trying to do is kind of center it where that rectangle shape starts on the background of this sign. That's going to put me in the middle of everything. I can cheat and peek from the back side too if I look kind of through the holes and see where I need to tap it over just a little bit. There we go. So that's nice and centered on there. And then with my letters, it's just like gluing anything else. I'm just going to put a little dot of glue behind them and stick them down. The Mod Podge doesn't really make any kind of difference. Now, some people do ask, do you put a coat of Mod Podge on the top of your piece to seal it? Some people do, some people don't. I normally do not, especially if it's tissue paper, because sometimes if it's not 110% dry underneath, if you put that coating on top, it'll make your tissue paper bubble. And so I'm a weenie and I'm scared of messing it up after I've already done it. So I do not. But you definitely could if you wanted to, like if you wanted to let it dry overnight even and then add a coat on top, you could do that. Or even after you assemble it, you could apply an entire coat of Mod Podge over the whole sign. Mine are going to be inside, out of the elements, so I'm not too worried about them having any kind of issues with needing to be sealed, but you definitely could. And get our H on there. And stick that piece down. Oops. So I just realized I pushed the H too far down to the bottom. There we go. H-O-M-P. So there is my little teeny tiny sign. I'm going to let this part dry and then we'll put our easel on the back side of it. Make sure I've got them all lined up right. Perfect. So I'm going to let that part dry for just a moment. And what we can do while that's drying is we can talk about our extra embellishments here. So I know some of you guys freak out every time I'm like, oh, we're going to make a bow. And you're like, no, we really don't have to do that. I promise you this little one is not too difficult. It's kind of tricky to see on the camera, but we've got sort of the fluffy stuff in the background and then this little guy on front. So I'll show you what that looks like. Now I gave you way more than what you need, so you can kind of play around with it. If the first one doesn't come out the way you want, you can always make another one. But I'm gonna kind of eyeball out how much I need. So if you've ever made like a memorial ribbon, that's kind of what we're gonna do. I'm gonna bundle it up in my hand like this and flip it over itself so it has like a memorial ribbon shape. I can try it with this, but it's a little easier to see. So I have my piece here, and I'm just gonna flip it so that I've got a shape like this where it's crisscrossed over the top of itself in the middle. So I'm gonna do the same, like I said, with this piece. I'm gonna crisscross and kind of look at that and decide how much tail I want and how much top flop I want, because what we'll end up doing is this top piece, the top of our loop, is gonna come down to our middle to make sort of the ears of our bow, and then this will be the tails. And that is gonna be plenty big enough, so I only need about that much. So I'm gonna snip the excess over here, put that part aside for now. And it's up to you. If you want to just bundle it over. So I got memorial ribbon, and then I'm gonna take the top of it and shrink it down to itself like this. You could add some hot glue in there just to hold it in place. What I'm actually gonna do is take a little piece of this. I'm gonna trim. I know it's really hard to see on the camera, but all I have is just a really skinny piece of it that I trimmed off. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this as a knot to tie in the middle of all this. So let's make my memorial ribbon again. So my memorial ribbon on here. I'm gonna take the top of my piece and flip it to where I've got my two tails are sticking out and my top piece is up there. I know this is so hard to see on the camera, guys. Here, pull it to the middle like this, and I'm gonna take that little piece that I added, I'm just gonna tie it around this middle section. Don't worry about it being perfect because we can adjust pieces once we've got this knot wrapped around here. See, right now my ears are all wompty catty and not the size they're supposed to be. So because I didn't tie this middle part real tight, all I'm gonna do is kind of pull like you would with a shoelace until I get them where I want them to be. And then I'll tie that piece tight again. Pull that guy. But even once I've tied it tight, I can still adjust these a little bit. It's a lot like working with a shoelace loop. And kind of size it. I'm gonna put it up next to my bunny so I can make sure it's not too big for his neck, but that'll work. So then I'm gonna take those extra tails and just kind of trim them off so I don't have weird sticky outies anywhere. And then these bottom tails are definitely too long for my taste right now, so I'm gonna trim some of them off too. This one's a little too long. There we go. So I've got this little bow like this that I can line up on my bunny, and this is where the hot glue is going to come in handy. You could use regular glue too, but the hot glue is going to make it a lot easier. All I'm going to do is add a little dot of hot glue to the center of the back of my bow, and I'm going to stick that down where I want it to sit on my bunny. You could do it up on the ears, you could do it on the neck. I think I like the neck just because it's kind of centered on his little body. We're gonna hold that in place just until it sets. And then just kind of fluff our little pieces. Now I could leave it just like that, but I do really like the definition with some of this ribbon on top of it. So I'm gonna do the same thing with this. Make another little bow, but this one I'm gonna tie just because of how thick it is. I'm gonna figure out roughly how much I need. About that. You know what? We're gonna cheat. We're gonna do a different part first. Make sure I've got plenty of it here, and I should have more than plenty. What I did on the base of ours was I added a row of the jute around the side of it, and I thought it came out pretty cute. So I'm gonna go on here, and what I'm gonna do, again, this is where the hot glue is really helpful. I'm gonna add a little bit of the hot glue along the edge, and I'm gonna stick my jute down onto it. Let that first piece kind of grab and dry for a second, and then the rest of it will come together really easy. And you don't have to glue around the whole entire edge to get it perfect. I can skip some space, add a little bit more glue. For the most part, as long as you do your curves, it'll stay put really, really well. Just I'm gonna walk my way around this, adding a little bit more glue as I go. And of course, this is optional too. If you don't like the look of this, you don't have to add it. I just thought I added a little bit of something fun to the edge of my project, where normally you would just see the laser cut edges. You could also paint the edges. It'll take a few coats, but you definitely can do it. Now when I get to this last part, I kind of push my jute to see where it needs to end, and then I'll take a little snip. Come on, scissors. Add some more hot glue right here on this edge. Set my jute down into. And push it down so it can set. Get my little glue strings out of there, because Lord knows hot glue makes glue strings, and now I've got that little trimmed edge that's gonna look super cute around my bunny. Okay, now we know that I still have tons of jute left to make my little bow, but I got nervous for a second. So we're gonna take this piece, and with this one, like I said, I'm gonna actually tie it like a real bow. So I'm going to make two little bunny ears like I was going to tie my shoes, bend them over each other, and then make a knot, like I said, just like I was gonna tie my shoes. And I'm just gonna kind of pull it down until my ears are the size I want them to be. I'm gonna pull on it to tighten my knot a little bit, pull my bottom pieces so that I have my little bow, and this is still way more than what I need, but that's okay because I got what I needed out of it. I'm gonna trim the excess tail pieces that I don't want off of it. And set. See all this extra I had? I was worried. And then I've got my little bow. So now I'm going to add some hot glue to the back of this and stick it right on top of my pink bow. And once I set them down, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold it in place for just a minute so that that glue has a chance to dry. I feel like I got to play the Jeopardy theme song. Do, 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 do. Anyway. Stick that piece down, and then that's my little bunny. He's ready to go. Now, if you wanted to do other effects, you could take paint around the edge here and tap it and give him kind of a distressed look. There's a lot you could play with there. But I can take my little base. I can set my bunny down into my base, and my bunny's ready to go. He's all set. Let's go ahead and put the hanger on the back of our hop, and then we will talk about the eggs. Or not the hanger, but the stand, rather. Excuse me. So I have my little hop sign that I made. On the back of here is where we're going to put our stand. And if you've never made one of these stands with me, I'm going to walk you through it. You're going to have this rectangle piece that's got 2 slots in it. You're going to have 2 little squares that have a circle hole in them, and then your actual stand itself. So what we're going to start by doing is putting our square, what's that, square peg in a round hole. That's exactly what we're doing, because this is going to be a square piece. It's going to go in the round hole. Excuse me. We're going to set one on either side of our project here. And I have the rounded sides up and the flat side to the bottom of our little squares. You can kind of see that on there. I'm going to set that aside for just a second. I'm going to come to my big rectangle piece that's got the 2 slots in it, and I'm going to put glue on the back side of it. And I'm going to lightly set it down on the back of my project. I'm not pressing down hard yet. I'm just kind of putting it in place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my easel piece, and I'm going to kind of line the bottom of it up with the bottom of my project, and that's going to tell me where I really want that rectangle to sit. So I'm going to sneak it up just a little bit. Wood glue gives us some time to work with it, so I'm not too concerned. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you put the glue either on the flat side of your squares, or you can put it right into the little slots on your project. I usually like to put it in the slots on my project. And you're not trying to fill this. You're just trying to make sure that there's some glue down in those tabs. I'll show you. I've got just little dots in there. They do not need to fill that hole well, because if not, you're going to have glue come flying out. And what I'm going to do is that flat end of the squares, I'm gonna push down into those tabs, and it takes just a second to get it to line up. But I'm making sure that this piece stays in the middle, because if you glue these down without this piece in the middle, you're not gonna be able to get this piece back in. So once I've got that piece pushed down flat, now I'm gonna adjust the rectangle that's attached to the back of this part so that these are flush down here. So this part, because it's wood glue, I still have some wiggle time. I'm gonna adjust it till the bottom of my stand is at the bottom of my project. And it does not have to be perfect, but that's just kind of my guideline. Make sure everything's pushed in, and then I'm gonna let that set. Once the glue sets, it's gonna be a great stand. If you try to pick it up beforehand, it's going to pop off the back. Ask me how I know. So we'll let this guy dry, and in just a few minutes, we will have a cute little sign that's got a stand on the back of it, as well as a bunny that's got a base. All right, now let's get to these little eggs and these elusive triangles that don't quite make sense yet. These eggs are paintable, they are decoupageable, they have a really cool surface to them, and there are a couple different things you can do with them. So I'll show you my other set. This one I just painted with the green paint that's in our kit this month, and I left it a little bit streaky because I liked the texture in it, but if I were to add another coat, I can fill this in completely. This one, though, kind of tricky to see on the lighting, I actually decoupaged some of our leftover napkin onto it. And I'll show you guys how I did this. I will tell you, but it's not a perfect process. If you look closely, there are some wrinkles and some overlap parts that are not perfectly overlapped. But guess what? It's a fun craft project. And if anybody wants to judge my egg, they can show me how they can do it better. But what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take another kind of quadrant, I guess we could say, from my napkin. And here's another option too. If there's like one little section on here that you like, you could also just cut that section out, decoupage that onto your egg, and then kind of paint around the outside edge of it to kind of seal it in. So that's an option as well. I did one of those, but I don't know where that egg went. So anyway, all we're gonna do is take some of our Mod Podge, which I'm going to put in my little tray right here. All right, so we've got some of the Mod Podge. I'm gonna take my foam brush, and I'm gonna kind of work at my egg in half. So if you feel around, you'll notice the egg has sort of like a seam through the middle part of it. So I'm gonna work on one side of it and then the other. But I'm gonna take some of my Mod Podge, I'm gonna brush it right onto the egg. Get this part coated on there. And I'm pretty much just coating the front half from the seam forward. And then I'm gonna take my tissue and I'm gonna lay it on. Now it's up to you. If you want to try to center a design on there, you can. If you just kind of wanna hope for the best, you could do that too. But I'm gonna lay it down, and what I'm doing is I'm just kind of working the tissue out towards the edges where that seam is on the egg so that I kind of get a good curve. Again, I'm gonna have wrinkles, and that's okay. I'm told wrinkles are not that scary, both in life and in craft projects. So I'm gonna push that all the way back to that seam. And then I'm gonna let it dry for just a second. And if you look, I have kind of half an egg covered, half an egg not covered. What I'm gonna do is trim real close along that edge. And now I'm gonna have these little weird sticky outies. Now it's up to you. If you wanna go in and try to trim them real close, you can. All I'm gonna do, and I gotta put a little bit more Mod Podge in my well over here. This is the exception to the rule type thing. I'm actually going to go through and Mod Podge and stick them down. So I'm gonna take my brush with my Mod Podge on it, and I'm gonna brush flat down like this. Oops, that was a big loose piece. Brush kind of flat down like this so that I can stick those edges down. I know I said normally I try not to do Mod Podge on the top because I'm afraid it's gonna bubble. This is the exception that proves the rule. So I'm going around the edge of my egg and just kind of tapping to squeeze some of the Mod Podge out of my brush almost, and then pushing the piece down. And it's giving me a nice flat edge there. Again, scrapbook paper, this probably would not work with. This tissue is gonna be a lot more forgiving to be able to do this. So kind of squeeze some of it out to tap it down, and then brush it down flat. Squeeze some out, brush it down flat. Now, if I really wanted to, I could stop right then, use this as the front of my egg and call it a day. I am gonna do the back side of this. I just need to let this dry for just a few minutes. As for this egg, I think I'm gonna paint this one and go that route with it. Something else I thought would be cute would be to take the netting, and I've seen them before. I feel like they have a fancy name, but take some of the netting from my leftover ribbon and wrap it like this to where it's got sort of like a little frill on the top of it. So that's an option too. Get creative with this. This part's meant to be fun. It was just something that I felt the whole set needed a little something else, and that's what I decided to go with. But to paint these, let's see. We'll do this one. I have a lot of pink, so I feel like I need to paint another green one as soon as I find my green paint. To paint these, it's just like painting anything else. You just have a couple of extra angles and sides. I'm gonna take my brush, and you can use any brush to do this too. And I'm just gonna paint right on there. It covers pretty well. I think 2 coats will give you a really, really solid egg design, but I kind of, the same as what I did last time, I work sort of half of my egg so that I don't completely coat my hand in paint. Let this side dry, paint the back side of it, and sort of work my way back and forth. Maybe this one will do some speckles on it when it's done. So I'm gonna let that side of it dry, and I'm gonna switch back to my decoupage egg. Once I get some of the paint dry on my hands, because I don't want to transfer that. But now when I go to the back side of my egg, I'm gonna do pretty much the same I did with the front. I'm gonna take my Mod Podge. I'm gonna coat this side of my egg with it. And same idea, I'm gonna lay my napkin down on top of it. Piece of napkin that's here, and I've got plenty of napkin left too. So I will say this as well. If you get through this part and are like, oh, you know what, this did not work out quite the way I wanted it to, it's pretty easy to scrape this stuff off and start fresh. So don't feel like, oh, I ruined my eggs. They're really forgiving. They're easy to peel the stuff back off of if you decide you don't like the way it looks or want to try again, and you've got, I still have half my napkin left. So I could do this a couple of times and give it a go. But I'm doing the same thing. I'm just pushing it down around the part where I had the Mod Podge. Making sure. Now I'm going to look on this side and make sure I made it all the way to the edge where I stopped on the other side, and it looks like I did. That part I need to lay down just right. So I'm looking kind of on this backside part where my whole egg now is covered. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to trim close to where the Mod Podge is not anymore. This is my take on a Fabergé egg. Is that what they're called? I think so. This piece. This one I'm trimming a little bit closer than I did on the last one, since I don't want too much overlap this time around. All right, so I trimmed it. Now I've got this little, much smaller seam this time around, but I'm gonna do the same thing where I'm gonna take my Mod Podge and I'm just gonna brush over top of it to flatten that part. And I'm just gonna brush it all down flat. Tap a little bit, brush it down. Tap a little bit, brush it down. Shall I make it all the way around my egg? And now I have a little tiny, we're going to call it a Fabergé egg. It is a paper Fabergé egg. There we go. And again, I do have some spots that are going to have little wrinkles in it, and that's okay. When I'm ready to display this, I'm just going to look to see which side I like the best, which is actually that side right there. And that's going to be the side that I'm going to put face out. that's where these little triangles come into play. So when I was trying to display these with my pieces, they kept rolling out of the places where I wanted them to. And I was like, oh, I could go look for like a nest or something cute to put them in. And then I decided just to cheat and do a pair of triangles. And what we're going to do with those is I'm going to go back to my hot glue gun. I'm going to put a little dot of glue to put 2 of them together just because the thickness of 2 layers of this seems to do the trick. I'm going to glue a pair of them together. And then along the edge of the triangle, one of the long edges, I'm going to add hot glue along that. And I'm going to glue it to the back of my egg. So this is the side that I decided I want to be my front. So I'm just going to glue it like this. What you might do is actually put your triangles down on the table and kind of press your egg into it, the angle that you would like it to sit. So I'm going to hold that for just a second so that it gets, the glue has a chance to cool back off and set on there. And all that's going to do is give my egg a little standing point so that it can sit up the way that I want it to. You could do one where it's cocked over to the side. You could do one where it's sitting straight up like this, kind of up to you. But that's all the triangles are for. They're just to help make my egg stay where I want it to stay. Now I'm going to go back to my painted egg. I'm going to do a coat on the other side. I'll let those dry, and then I'll do one more coat on top of it to make a good solid color. But I'm sure you guys don't want to sit here and watch paint dry, so we're going to skip to that part right now. Okay, so I decided I want to do something different with my egg. I was going to just do splatter paint on it, but I think I want to make some flowers. I'm going to show you guys a really easy way to do that. Using one of your blue paintbrushes in your bag, or really anything that's going to have a circled edge, like a circled edge to it, you don't actually have to brush the flowers. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the back end of my brush, not the bristles, but the back end of my brush, and I'm going to dip it in my paint, and I make a single dot, little teeny tiny dot, and then I'm going to do 5 dots around it. Now, the trick is, if I were to just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 around it, my dots are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And if I wanted to be more uniform, I can usually do about 2 dots worth per dip of paint. So I've got my fresh dip. I'm going to do 1, 2, and then I'm going to go back and dip again, because if not, my dots are going to get smaller and smaller. 3, 4, and then 1 more little dot for my last one. I've got like a little flower. I can go around my whole egg making little flower shapes all the way around it, and I can decide how dense I want that to be. I don't want to make it too covered, but I'm going to go around it and do that. 2. And again, they don't have to be perfect. This is meant to be fun. Easter eggs are not perfect, so that flower's not a perfect one, and guess what? It's still going to come out cute. Another one over here. One of the best things, though, is to make sure that your egg is completely dry when you go to do this, because if not, every time you touch it, it's going to take some of the paint off with it. All right, so now that I have dotted my egg all over the place, I'm going to do the same as I did with my last one. I'm going to add this little triangle to the back side of my egg. Here is the set I just made with you guys. This has my decoupaged hop letters, my little bunny, and then my 2 eggs, my decoupaged egg, as well as my dotted egg. I did display them with some little tulips that I grabbed at Home Goods that I think are so cute. And the hot pink that's in them is really similar to the hot pink that is in some of the decoupage paper. So like I said, if there's a color that you like, find a pattern or napkin that you like and use that if these aren't your go-to colors, and kind of match them with your decor. But I thought this one was pretty fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see your creations.